Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to our webinar by the Business Support Service. I'm Jordan, and today I'm joined with my colleague Mark, and we're going to be doing a webinar on doing business from home and the key considerations of doing so. Now, today we're going to be covering a few different elements of what is worth considering. My colleague Mark, who's an advisor on the Business Support Service, will also do several slides to cover topics as well. But before we start, I just want to give you guys a bit of an understanding of who we are. There we go. Who we are as a business support service. You may have, for instance, already heard of us. You may never have heard of us and just came across our webinar online, or you may have spoke to us previously a while back. But we are the business support service free, virtual, multi-channel information guidance service. And we operate across England. I can see a lot of yous there in the chat saying hello, welcome, thank you for joining us. So what are we? Well, we form a key element of the business support provision. We're a part of the Business Growth Service, which you may have heard of, and we work on behalf of the Department for Business and Trade, that being DBT. What we do, though, here at the service, well, we help businesses all the way from those who are just wanting to plant that initial seed of an idea to start one, all the way through to people who are ultimately got businesses for generations. And we're here to help and make your life a little bit easier in terms of understanding the core information, also signposting you to the right people to help you with your queries. As I mentioned, we are part of the Business Growth Service. Now, what the Business Growth Service is ultimately the ecosystem of business support by the government. And there's a website called business.gov.uk that you may have come across, and it allows you to find information which includes things like starting a business, growing a business, selling overseas from the UK, as well as importing, and much more. Now, you can go over to business.gov.uk to have a read through the information on that website. And as we find with many people, they then prefer to talk through that information. And this is where we come in. You can contact us and you can speak to one of our fantastic Tier 1 advisors and then get an appointment booked in with one of our Tier 2 advisors. Mark, being a Tier 2 advisor, at that point, you'll have an opportunity to have a bit more of an in-depth discussion on your business questions and hopefully go away better informed in order to make decisions. But business.gov.uk is a fantastic resource to go on, have a read through the information upon it. It also allows you to put your postcode in to identify localized support as well. As another element of the business growth service is the Business Academy as well. Now, some of you may have already been on the Business Academy. They provide a range of on-demand videos. They also do a range of webinars and information to support you at any stage of your business journey. And it is a great resource to go on as well. But before we get started, I'm just going to put a poll up there for you guys to answer. And what is going to give us an idea is just where you are in your business journey, which best describes your current position ultimately. So you'll see a poll come up there, and you've got three options. Are you already run a business from home, so you've already done it and already doing it? You're planning to start a home-based business within the next 12 months. You're exploring business ideas and researching options, so you're in that initial stage, or you're just interested in learning more. Maybe it's something that you may come across in the future. But what I'll do is, there it is, as you can see there, there's people voting. So it's not like quite a few of you are planning to start a home-based business within the next 12 months, which is exciting. You can use the chat discussion forum as well. Let me know what type of businesses you're thinking of starting. Give me an idea. Feel free to answer that. It'd be great to know. Or if you've already started, what are you doing now as well? I'll give you a couple of seconds there if you want to just put anything in the discussion forum. Just to give you an idea while we're waiting as well, we do ultimately at the end have a bit of a Q&A opportunity. So any questions you may have, me and Mark will spend some time at the end of this webinar answering them. Be about 15 minutes to 20 minutes opportunity to ask questions, and we'll try and answer where we can. So moving on though, what I'm going to do is just go over a bit of the agenda. So I'm going to cover the core benefits of working from home, the challenges and risks it poses, the permissions and compliances you need to understand, the insurances and finances. What can you claim potentially? So we'll go over a little bit of what potentially is worth exploring and you can claim back, and some tips for success as well. I can see my little icon I put in that is decided to hide, but tips for success as well. But without further ado, I'm just going to hand over to my colleague Mark, who's going to take over and he's going to go over his slides. So without further ado, here's Mark.
Thanks, Jordan. Good afternoon, everyone. My name's Mark, here with the Business Support Service. And just to let you know, I was going to put an additional slide in there just to say happy birthday to me, because it is my birthday. So any questions, make them nice and easy. No, only kidding. But welcome to everyone. A pleasure, actually, being part of this webinar to deliver this particular topic to you. So the first thing is, why start a business from home? So there are several reasons why home working appeals to aspiring business owners like yourself. So for many people, the biggest attraction is reducing startup costs. Operate from home removes expenses such as commercial rent and can make becoming self-employed much, much more accessible. It does also offer flexibility, allowing to work around personal commitments and test a business idea before investing in that business heavily. So combined with reduced travel costs and potentially better work-life balance, it's easy to see why so many business begin this way. Another key factor to consider is that technology has made home working far more practical than it was in the past. So things such as cloud-based software, online payment systems, video conferencing platforms, and digital marketing channels mean that many businesses can operate effectively at home without ever needing a traditional office space. So start from home can also reduce pressure during those crucial early months of starting your business or running your business. So rather than committing to long-term leases or significant overheads before income is established in the business, entrepreneurs like yourself can focus on attracting customers, refining your product or service, and generally building confidence. It's going to provide you with an opportunity to learn what works, identify challenges, and make adjustments before taking on a longer financial commitment. So for many people, a home-based business is not necessarily the end goal, but the first step in a longer business journey. Some of today's most successful companies initially started from a spare bedroom, a garage, or even a kitchen table before growing into larger operations. So starting small can provide valuable experience whilst keeping risk at a very much a manageable and stress-free level. So there are pros and cons, but let's look at the pros. I mean, the benefits of operating from home can be quite significant for you. So as I mentioned earlier, reduced overheads often mean lower financial risk in the early stages of your business. Many people appreciate the ability to work around family responsibilities and avoid lengthy commutes to work or the office. So you can also gain great control over your working environment and may be able to benefit from certain tax allowances related to businesses' use of the home. For many business owners, time becomes one of the biggest advantages for you. So the hours normally spent commuting can instead be invested in serving customers, generating sales, developing products or services, or planning your future growth. So even saving a modest amount of time each day can create a substantial benefit over the course of a trading year. So home working can also help businesses remain agile, so decisions can be often made quickly, and many home-based businesses find it easier to adapt to changing customer demand without being tied into expensive premises or longer-term commitments. Another advantage I would like to add is that operating from home allows entrepreneurs to build gradually, okay, which is quite important. So you can start on a part-time basis, test the concept alongside employment or other responsibilities, and increase your activity as your confidence grows and also the revenue grows, more importantly. So this can make the transition into self-employment feel less daunting and financially safer. So many successful entrepreneurs credit their home working period for helping them understand their customers, improving their efficiency, and developing strong financial discipline before expanding into dedicated business premises. Of course, while these benefits are attractive, working from home isn't without its challenges, i.e. the cons. So let's balance this picture by looking at some of the common difficulties entrepreneurs like yourself may encounter. So before we do that, here's another polling question for you to answer. So what do you think at this moment in time would be the biggest challenge of running your business from home? So if you can maybe suspend a minute couple of minutes answering that. And perhaps my colleague Jordan will be able to sort of let me know as to what the results of that are. But that's quite a common question we ask our clients when we deal with them from a business support service engagement. Okay, great. Well, thanks for taking part in that. We will look at those responses, but generally speaking, those three options there are typically the challenges I am presented through clients I deal with in the business support service. Very valid questions, but with a business sort of support service tier 2 appointment with someone like myself, one of my colleagues, we can expand and dig a little bit deeper with regards to those questions and get under the bonnet, as it were. So thank you so much for that. So as I mentioned before, although home-based businesses offer flexibility, they can offer some or create some unique challenges. So many business owners experience feelings of isolation, particularly if they've previously worked in a larger team in an office. Distractions from family members can also be a problem. Household responsibilities and day-to-day life can also make any productivity difficult. So space can also become an issue, especially if stock, equipment, or custom meetings are involved in running your business. Additionally, some businesses worry about maintaining a professional image when operating from a residential address. That's not uncommon, but certainly that is not always the case. So perhaps the biggest challenge is knowing when to stop working. I know you might think, well, I'm trying to build a business, why should I stop working? But many people find that maintaining motivation can be difficult without colleagues or supervisors around them. Some thrive in a home environment, while others struggle with procrastination or find it challenging to remain focused for longer periods of time. So there can also be practical or operational difficulties. So limited storage space may inhibit your growth. Customer meetings may be less convenient, and business activities can begin to impact family members sharing the same property as yourself. Security is another consideration. So equipment, confidential documents, and customer information need to be protected, and business owners should they have appropriate insurance cover in place for any assets used by the business. So as your business grows, a home environment that initially felt ideal may start to become feeling a little bit restrictive. Understand these limitations early can help you make those informed decisions about your future growth and expansion of your business. So that leads us nicely into one of the most common issues experienced by business owners. One of the risks of working from home is that work and personal life can become merged together, blurred, as it were. So without clear boundaries, many people end up working longer hours than they would normally in a traditional workplace. And that's often the case. Family interruptions can occur throughout the day, while the temptation to check emails in the evening can leave you feeling permanently connected to the business. So over time, that can lead to stress, fatigue, and perhaps burnout as well. So the challenge here is often a psychological one as much as a practical one. So when your workplace and home environment are the same location, it can become difficult to mentally switch off. So tasks that begin as a quick email check or after dinner can easily develop into hours of additional work. So many entrepreneurs do start to feel guilty when they're not working because there's another customer inquiry to answer, social media to post, to create administrative tasks to complete. So without conscious effort, the business itself can begin to dominate both personal time and family life. So over the longer term, this can affect your well-being, okay, relationships, and even business performance. So research consistently shows that excessive working hours can reduce productivity and that decision-making quality rather than improve it. So creating those healthy boundaries protects both the individual and the business. So sustainable working habits are often key factor in long-term business success. So the good news is, though, that there are practical steps you can take to avoid these issues. So successful home-based businesses often rely on creating clear boundaries. So a dedicated workspace is going to help separate the work from home life, even if it's a simple corner of a room. okay? So what I would suggest is setting defined working hours also helps, because that's going to create expectations for both customers and your family members. So using a separate business phone number can also help maintain professionalism, and it can limit interruptions outside of those working hours. But most importantly, remember to schedule breaks and give yourself permission to step away from your work. Many successful home workers establish routines that a clear start and finish to the start of the working day. This might include preparing a to-do list each morning, taking a short walk before work, or shutting down all business devices at a specific time each evening. It's equally important to communicate these boundaries to the people around you, so family members are more likely to respect your work time if they understand when you are available and when interruptions should be avoided or at least kept to the bare minimum. Technology can also help you, so separate business email accounts, calendars, and phone numbers create professional boundaries while helping customers understand when responses can be expected from you. Finally, remember that rest is productive, okay? You are allowed to rest, so taking regular breaks, annual leave, and time with the business will support creativity, concentration, and overall longer-term well-being. So once you've considered your working arrangements, the next question is whether your property is suitable for business itself. So not every business is suited to every property, unfortunately. So it's worth considering how much space you require, whether you'll need storage for products or equipment, and whether customers will be visiting your home as part of your business operation. That's certainly a consideration. Also, deliveries, collections, and noise levels can also have an impact on neighbours and household members. So thinking about these practical issues early can help prevent any problems later on as your business starts to develop. Internet connectivity is often overlooked, but can be critical, particularly for businesses that rely heavily on online communication, video conferencing, and cloud software or e-commerce. So you should also consider security, parking availability, accessibility, and health and safety. So if clients, suppliers, or employees are expected to visit your property, the physical environment needs to support those activities safely and professionally. So it's worth considering not only your current requirements, but also your future needs as your business starts to grow or starts to scale. So a spare bedroom may work perfectly for a startup, but what happens if your customer base doubles or stock levels start to increase significantly? So assessing your property suitability from both a current and future perspective can help prevent costly disruption as the business starts to grow. And before launching your business, there are a few key people and organizations that you may need to speak to. So if you rent your home, so many people assume they can simply start trading from home immediately, but there are often stakeholders who should be informed. So depending upon your circumstances, this can include your mortgage, lender, your landlord, your insurers, your local authority, or even licensing bodies. So checking these requirements in advance can help avoid compliance issues and ensure you're operating legally from day one. So informing the relevant organizations is not simply about compliance, it can also protect your business. So for example, failing to notify an insurer about business activities could affect future claims or leave certain risks uninsured. Different businesses may face different obligations depending upon the business activities. So businesses, for example, dealing with food, childcare, beauty treatments, hazardous substances, or regulated professional services may have additional requirements beyond those faced by a typical online retailer or consultant. So taking time is key to identify all the relevant stakeholders before trading begins. That's going to help you avoid unexpected delays, penalties, or restrictions later on. So a short amount of preparation at the beginning can save a significant amount of time or stress and expense further down the line. So let's start with businesses that operate from rented accommodation. So if you rent your home, your tenancy agreement is the first place to check, okay? So some agreements may restrict businesses' activity or require permission for specific activities, such as customer visits, displaying business signage, or even storing significant amounts of stock in that property. So where there is uncertainty, speaking with your landlord before starting is usually the safest and most sensible approach. Landlords are often concerned about potential impacts on the property, neighbouring residents, and their own insurance for their property. Being open and transparent about this, about your plans, can often help address concerns and maintain those positive relationships with your landlord. The type of business that can all make a difference. So a consultant working client from a laptop may create very little impact, whereas a business involving frequent deliveries, customer visits, or even specialist equipment is more likely to require this type of discussion. It's also sensible to keep a written record of any permissions granted. This provides clarity for both parties and can be useful if property ownership or management changes of that property in the future. So seeking permission early is key here. It demonstrates your professionalism and will reduce the likelihood of disputes later on. So for homeowners, the conversation is a little different, but equally as important. So if you own your property, your mortgage terms may include conditions relating to business use. So mortgage lenders may wish to be informed if customer visits become frequent, employees work from the property, or structural changes to the property are planned in line with the operation of your business. So whilst many lenders are supportive for home businesses, obtaining that clarity beforehand can help you avoid any unnecessary complications. Homeowners should also consider insurance implications. Standard home insurance policies may not automatically cover stock, specialist equipment, or business activities taking place within your property. So another consideration I would say to look out for is future property transaction. So where significant business use or alterations have occurred, it may be important to retain records of permissions, approvals, and any discussions with your lenders, mortgage provider, or insurance. So most lenders recognise that home working has become increasingly common, so particularly for service-based businesses. However, every lender has different requirements, so checking in advance with them remains a sensible and most obvious precaution, I would say. So a quick conversation today, I'm saying this can help prevent potential complications in the future. So a related area that often raises questions I get as a business support advisor is planning permission. Okay, what they should be considering. So the good news is here, though, that many home-based businesses operate without requiring that planning permission. However, if business activities significantly alter how the property is used, create additional traffic, parking issues, for example, or disturbance to the neighbours, permission may well be needed. So every situation is different. So if you're unsure, contact your local planning department is always advisable. One of the key questions local authorities consider is whether the property remains primarily residential in nature. Small-scale activities that have little impact on your neighbours are often less likely to require that planning intervention. Issues can arise when business operations begin to generate significant vehicle movements, customer footfall, noise, or visual changes to your property. So planning requirements vary between local authorities and circumstances, which is why obtaining that advice specific to your situation is so important at this stage. So seeking guidance early can provide certainty and help avoid those costly enforcement issues later on. So to make this clear to understand, or easy to understand, let's look at some common examples. So certain types of businesses, as I mentioned, have different business activity, and they're more often likely to require planning consideration. Examples include beauty salons, hairdressers receiving regular clients, workshops, childcare businesses, and larger online retail operations with frequent deliveries and collections. So the key factor here is often the impact the business has on the surrounding residential area. So many planning decisions focus less on the specific business, but more on its scale. So a small operation serving a handful of customers each week may be acceptable, whereas a high volume version of the same business could attract planning concerns. So parking demand is a big one I was asked about. Noise, operating hours, and delivery frequency are often really important considerations. So if neighbours regularly experience disruption, there's a greater likelihood that planning issues may arise. Business owners also should really start thinking carefully about how your operations or your business may start to evolve in line with your growth plans or your scaling plans. So activities that initially have little impact now can become more significant as your customer numbers increase. So keeping future growth plans in mind can also help ensure compliance as the business develops. So in addition to your business activity itself, physical changes to a property can also trigger requirements. So if your plans do actually end up involving modifying your property, additional permissions may be required. So that might include extensions, garage conversions, creating separate entrances, constructing outbuildings, or developing a dedicated commercial storage space for the operational side of your business. So checking these requirements before investing money can save you considerable time and indeed expense. So business owners sometimes focus solely on planning permission, but other requirements do also apply, including building regulations, fire safety standards, and those access considerations. The more specialised your business space becomes, the more important it is to ensure all necessary approvals are obtained before work begins. So failure to do so can result in delays, additional costs, or the need to reverse that completed work, which would be a bit of a nightmare. So engaging with qualified professionals at an early stage can help ensure that proposed alterations are both legally compliant and suitable for future business needs and part of the line with your growth aspirations. So investing time in planning before construction begins often saves significantly more time and a lot of money later on. So beyond planning considerations, some sectors also require formal licenses or registrations. So what I'll do is I'm going to now hand you over to Jordan, who will now take you a look at the particular licenses, registrations, and permissions that may apply to specific types of your business activity. Thank you so much for your time. Over to you, Jordan.
Fantastic. Thanks for that, Mark. And big round of applause to Mark because he's done that with a bit of a croaky voice and he's done very well there. And it's his birthday. Of course, you got to get that in there. It is his birthday. So, everyone, with regards to the questions you're asking in the discussion forum there, some really, really good questions. We've got a live Q&A section just at the bottom. You should be able to see it. If you utilize that, my colleagues will look to answer them and we'll look to set some aside for our Q&A at the end as well. With just in particular with the businesses as well, I know I asked the question at the beginning, what businesses you have, such a wide range of businesses you all have, and some very intriguing ones as well. What has been the sort of the main difficulties you've had starting the business? Are you currently in a phase where you are struggling anywhere? Let us know because obviously the service here is here to help you no matter where you're at in that journey as well. So feel free to reach out to us at any point. We will have the contact details towards the end. I know my colleagues will also post it if you ask in the discussion forum as well, but you can reach out to us at any point of your journey. But licensing as well. Licensing requirements is such an important thing to consider. Food businesses tend to be quite a popular one that people contact us about. It is quite an accessible business to start. You can start it from your home kitchen. But what a lot of people need to bear in mind is the requirements for food licensing and food registration with your local authority. This is required whether you're just making them at home and selling them from home, or if you're making them at home and going to things like markets. You do need to make sure that gets done, and it needs to be done 28 days prior to start to trade. Certain childcare services also require licensing, animal related services as well as alcohol sales and beauty treatments. Some of them also require licensing. Now, every single local authority dictates the licensing required. It's not sort of decided on a national scale. Each local authority will dictate which licensing they require you to have. There's a handy tool, the License Finder tool on Gov that you can utilize to identify licensing requirements. You can also speak directly to your local authority. Many of them you can contact straight away as well on that. Um, so certainly worth doing so. And it's worth just taking some time to identify if you all require a license because it saves you having a lot of hassle at a later date because you could be breaking certain rules. So do have a look and search up on that. As well as licensing, I just wanted, as I say, food businesses tend to be one of the most popular businesses people set up. You can tell I absolutely love my food. I really. It is important as well that the registration is of course it's a legal requirement. Food hygiene responsibilities apply as well, and environmental health inspections and hygiene ratings will also apply. So you will see, um, you'll see if you go anywhere to eat, or if you shop anywhere that sells food and the handling of food goods, a, a hygiene rating. If, for instance, you're looking at starting to bake brownies, as an example, to then sell at a farmer's market, a lot of market organizers and a lot of market management will also require you to show proof of your registration and your hygiene ratings as well. So do bear that in mind. And see loads of stuff popping up on that discussion forum. It's great that yous are all very much active and posting on there. So do keep it up. It makes these a lot more enjoyable when we know the type of people that we're speaking to in relation to the businesses you have as well. Moving on though, insurance, why it matters. Now, there's a lot of people who will contact us not knowing what insurance is out there, because it can be a bit of a rabbit warren. Insurances, you have a whole host of considerations. Some of them may be legally obligated, others are worth a consideration. And you can insure a range of stuff. You can insure your business equipment, for instance, your stock. You can insure against liability claims and customer injuries as well. So it is certainly worth debating and getting to understand the insurances out there. I've just noticed someone there mentioned being a consultant. Now, one of the insurances you may want to consider for a consultant, as an example, is professional indemnity insurance, which we'll get to in a little bit. But the insurances are, some of them are legal obligated, which again we'll get to. But please make sure if you're operating a business from home, you inform your home insurer. Why? Well, you don't want to affect any claims you make against your home, damage or anything like that, if they realize you're operating a business from that premises. It's always worth a conversation. You might not need to do anything or action anything, but it's worth a conversation to have, and making sure you're telling the insurer your nature of your business, whether or not stock is held within that premises, what equipment is used. If you're running a food business, again, you might be using specialist commercial food equipment within your residential kitchen, so they may like to know that. If customers visit your property, and if you have any employees as well. And as I say, failure to disclose could ultimately affect claims as well. So just make sure that you're having those conversations. And I always think it's worth just having that conversation. It's better to be sure than just to assume that you don't need to. It's better just to get clarification from them. That gives you the protection and the peace of mind on that. So, types of insurance. You've got things like cyber insurance, which is well worth doing if you're holding consumer data. If you're running, for instance, an e-commerce store, or you're collecting consumer data, you will want to consider cyber insurance. Now, you will likely heard of the ICO as well, the Information Commissioner's Office. These are things where if you're holding customer data, they're an element of requirement. You may want cyber insurance to protect you in, for instance, any data leaks or anything where your cyber security is at a threat. Ultimately, it is something that is very popular in terms of in the news recently. We've seen the damage it can do to businesses, so likely it is worth considering. You got things like public liability insurance. This is good if people are coming to your house, for instance. This is good to protect you in case they, for instance, maybe trip over in the house over something or damage. It's worth a consideration, and it's certainly worth it if, for instance, you're going to markets. Again, if you're going to markets to sell maybe what you're making, if you're selling food and so forth, public liability insurance is so integral, because the market operators tend to ask for proof for that. So it's worth noting. Then consultancy. If you're running a consultancy and you're providing advice to people, professional indemnity insurance is also a consideration. It is also a legal obligation in certain industries such as finance and legal. So it's well worth bearing that in mind. Now, professional indemnity insurance will protect you against anyone that believes they've been given bad advice by you. So that'll give you a worth consideration. Another legally obligated insurance is employer's liability insurance. If you were to employ a member of staff, it is legally obligated that you have this insurance in place. So bear that in mind. And of course, if you're holding content, stock, for instance, you may want to consider contents cover, business contents cover as well. And that's just five insurances that's worth a consideration or an obligation if you employ someone. But there's many others. Things such as if you're using your car for business purposes, you will require business vehicle insurance on that, and that again is a legal obligation. Now, you can find out a bit more information on insurances through quite a few resources that my colleagues can send over to you after a conversation. So if you're not too sure what insurances you require, or you want to have a bit more of a conversation on the types of insurance, give us a call, and our advisors can give you a bit of a chat through it and then point you towards resources to further support you in identifying the ideal insurance as well. Cybersecurity and data protection. I touched on this, and it is becoming more and more prevalent. Why? Well, we're seeing a lot more cyber attacks, not just on the huge global businesses, but even on small local businesses as well. And we want to, I suppose, reduce the risk as well, because it does working from home introduces certain risks because we're not always on guard when we're at home. We're in our safe space, aren't we? So you may feel that using the same password on everything is safe because it's just your personal password, but you might use that password for some of your business related elements as well. So strong passwords and not all the same is usually a very good idea. Making sure that your Wi-Fi is secure as well. Maybe it's not just share your Wi-Fi to every single house visitor you have, as an example. Making sure you're keeping devices up to date. Customer data protection through the ICO is important and it's imperative if you are holding consumer data. Now, the registration to the ICO, the Information Commissioner's Office, is mandatory when you hold consumer data and you utilize it. Okay. And when I mean by utilize it, you might want to market directly to other consumers, for instances. So, email marketing, if you've got permission to do so, you need to have the permission from the consumer to do marketing directly towards them. But making sure you're looking at the ICO is so important as well. And backups. Backups is so important. And I'm going to speak from personal experience here. I used to run my own business and I used to spend a lot of the time working from home. And with three children and a missus there next to me when I'm trying to work, there was a lot of distractions I saw. I think it was Louise earlier saying about hubby asking her to go out as well in terms of when she's at work. I know that feeling all too well. My partner, she used to always get me to go for walks or pop out in the school run and go out shopping after. And it's trying to find that balance. But having backups is so important because I found out the hard way when I done some work for a client of mine back in the day. I had a signed agreement with them, but my old laptop broke with all the information in terms of my agreements on there. And sadly, I couldn't get that back. And when I had a bit of a dispute with that client, it was very hard to showcase it because my agreement was no longer there. So just bear in mind, backups are very good to have in place. They're also really good if you're holding any sort of receipts and elements for your accounting needs as well. So one thing that I was asked a little bit so I used to do the same role as my colleague Mark as a tier two advisor at the business support service. And one of the core questions I used to get is actually, do I need to have business broadband if I'm working from home? It's not an obligation to do so, but there are certain considerations to to understand if you're looking at doing that. Okay. One of the core ones is your uptime if it is critical. Do you live in a place? I do. I live in a rural village where the internet might be a bit ups and down. And yes, they're getting better, but does the resident is the potential of that internet going off at any point in time, and is that going to be detrimental to you being able to run your business? If it is, and the uptime is a critical aspect of your business, then the consideration of business broadband might be worth doing. This is because you'll be able to have a look at elements within the contractual agreement with your broadband provider for loss of earnings and other elements as well. And they might be able to help with I suppose, getting your internet back up and going should there be an issue. So it's worth exploring. You rely on video calls as another consideration as well. Again, very much caters into the previous in terms of quality of your internet. If you're relying on video calls a lot of the time, if you're speaking to potential international clients or national clients and you were on the sort of the face-to-face conversations, it is very important. And you require faster support. I mentioned that previously as well in terms of you likely having an account manager of some sort if you have your business broadband with a provider that you can speak to and acquire a little bit more of a faster support because there won't be as many businesses wanting to speak to the business team the internet goes off as there is with residential customers. So bear that in mind. And the bigger one, multiple users connected. You're a growing business, but you might still work from home and have people there. So if you have multiple users connected, it is certainly worth a consideration as well. Utility costs. So when running a business, you want to consider your utility costs. So there might be additional cost on electricity, especially if you're using electric products to run the operations of your business. Your heating might increase because you're more in the house, or I don't think your heating is going to increase in the last couple of months we've had in the UK. We've been very fortunate, but your heating costs might go up as well over time if you're running the business from home and you're constantly within the property. Your water costs, if you're utilizing water for what you're doing, whether that's utilizing water for production or other elements as well, and increased usage from equipment in general. And that can go across all three of those. So understanding your utility costs, I think, is very much key. It'll also help you identify what the business is using compared to what, depending on your tariff, you might be able to identify how much usage your business is doing. So what expenses might be claimable? This is a big question. I noticed a couple of views in the polls hinted at towards this. Now, expenses that are claimable really does depend, and it is a broad term of claimable expenses, and it's always worth having a chat with an accountant to gauge a better understanding of your personal circumstances and get a bit more of a bespoke answer to this. There's an organisation called the Institute of Chartered Accountants for England and Wales. If you don't have an accountant, you can go on there and find a local accountant. But just for worth consideration, things like your heating and electricity bills, you could claim an element of that back. Likewise, with your broadband, you might be able to claim an element of that back as well. Telephony costs, well worth considering if you've got business mobile or if you're utilizing partial of your mobile or your home phone for business purposes. Equipment, office equipment. If you're setting up a home office, how much is it costing you to do so? To get a desk, to get a chair, to get stationery for it, as you can see, I've got listed there. Your ultimately the equipment you need to operate your business day to day. Elements of that will also be claimable. Business software you need to operate the business as well. So there's a lot of things that you could potentially claim for that is worth exploring. Now, the person that can tell you exactly what you can claim for is going to be the accountant. So, well worth a conversation with an accountant to further understand your bespoke situation. But towards the end of this, I know we've went through a lot, and I know that's a lot to take in. And I just want to quickly note, I noticed someone mentioning in terms of on the polls, if I have a look at the live polls that we've done so far, a couple of people mentioned finding customers and marketing. That was 37% of the poll that Mark conducted earlier. We did, well, Mark did a fantastic marketing webinar not too long ago. And don't worry if you missed it. It's over on our business support service YouTube. So feel free to go over there after today and have a watch of that. It will give you some good tips on growing your business and marketing it as well. It was a fantastic webinar. So I highly recommend it. Practical success tips in order to move your business forward and get going. So what we've identified as well throughout this webinar is make sure you're creating things like routines. You've got a routine. If you do the school run in the morning, do that. Have a set hour of working. So maybe it's 9 to 5 when you first start. I know it's easier said than done. I still remember waking up at 6 a.m., go up my laptop for half an hour just to do emails. I was stuck on that for hours when I was self-employed. So bear that in mind. Make sure you set goals. So what are your goals? Now, these goals can be both business related and personal related goals that help keep those boundaries solid. Separate your finances. This is important. There's no obligation to have a separate bank account, but it's certainly worthy of a consideration, okay? Because making sure you've got separate finances makes your accounts easier to manage, okay? Maintain records of everything. So making sure you're maintaining records of income, expenditure, and so forth. And you need to hold them for periods of time. If you're self-employed, 5 years after the 31st of January of that, ultimately of where you've submitted it. So bear that in mind. And review your performance regularly. Is your performance being impacted by working from home, for instance? It does happen. Review your performance in terms of the business aspect, but also your performance personally and health wise as well. So do bear that in mind. And a bit of a checklist. So making sure that your landlord or mortgage provider has been notified, making sure you've reviewed your insurance, planning requirements have been checked, you've obtained the licensing to which you require, expenses tracking in place if you're going to do that yourself, if you're going to use a software to do that, if you're going to hire an accountant to support you with that. Your broadband and technology is suitable for the job and the service to which you want to offer, and the data security is considered for the business as well. So finally, one last question, everyone. It's going to pop up on your screen at any moment now, but following today's webinar, how confident do you feel about starting or growing your business from home? Let us know. And don't worry if you still need a little bit of further support. That's what we're here for. This webinar may well have just took you a little bit more of a sort of a broad understanding, but your business is bespoke. So we need to have a bit more of a conversation with one of our advisors. That is fine. That's what we're here for. Yeah, so a good balance look in there with relation to sort of some people are very confident, others are somewhat confident. A few of you are neutral, which is fine, and a good percentage you use could do with some further support, and that's fine. Honestly, I think having a conversation with an advisor will help you get a little bit more confident in the considerations you need to take and really to take the next step on your journey. And after all, we are completely free service, so utilize us. But thank you for answering all of our polls today. There's some very good questions there. And as we approach towards the end of this webinar, as promised, there's our contact details. So you can use your phone and scan that QR code. We're very techy here. And you can speak to one of our colleagues on chat. You can call us via telephone. You can email us. We're also on the social media. So X, Facebook, YouTube, and LinkedIn. Over on LinkedIn, as an added bonus, we publish newsletters every month. They're well worth a read. I'm not just saying that because the next one getting published very soon is by me, and it's right on this subject, so well worth having a look at as well. But I think it's time for a bit of a Q&A, don't we? I'm sure you are all fully enjoyed listening to me and Mark talk, but it's time to get some questions answered. And as you can see, we're both on screen now. So let's have a look, Mark, at the questions we've been asked, shall we?
Yeah, absolutely. Could I just make a point
Certainly.
there before we look at these questions? I think starting a business exciting, but obviously can be sort of quite overwhelming, which is common. But I think with regards to the objectives, looking at your performance, Jordan mentioned sort of personal performance as well as business performance. If you have a business plan, or at least a scaled down version, it's always good to revisit that, just to give us a bit of insight as to what your original plans were, but also what it can do. It can help you look at your growth aspect, your scaling aspect, and that would then lend itself to what I spoke about, where you could have potential need for planning permission if you need to extend on your premises any way, shape, or form to operate your business.
Yeah, I completely agree. And Mark, we've got a couple of really good questions having a read. So I'll read them out if you want, mate, and we'll take it in turns, or
Yeah,
you feel free
yeah,
to take the lead. Use
yeah,
that
absolutely,
fantastic
yeah.
knowledge you have, mate.
Okay.
So Sherry is put in, can I put through a business expense at any time of the year, or should I wait until my self-assessment in spring?
Good question. I always say speak to anything to do with sort of financial or accountancy sort of advice. We normally ask people to speak to an accountant, but you can do
Yes.
either or. You can do either or. To make it all boxed up quite nicely, I'll wait to your self-assessment, but you can have that initial conversation with an accountant if you don't have one and explore that option for you. If there's a reason why you need to do that, is for a cash flow purpose. I can understand that. But I would say that they'd be best able to answer that for you.
I would just also just note, Sherry, just to get a bit more of an idea. So you mentioned your self-assessment in spring. It just got me questioning because obviously you submit your self-assessment by the 31st of January if you're doing it online, if you're doing it by paper by the 31st of October. So just double checking there. Have you been a sole trader for long? How are you finding sort of the understanding of the sole trader as well? Don't have to answer that in the chat by any means, but if you're unsure on anything, do feel free to reach out as well. But as Mark says, any tax questions on taxation and so forth, or submitting accounts, an accountant is going to be the most important and most suitable person to direct those questions at. So I'm looking to start. This is from Aslam. Anselm, sorry if I've got your name wrong. I'm horrendous at pronunciation, but I'm looking to start a small online store on Gumroad, aiming to sell my short stories and IP amongst other things in the future. What guidelines and legal considerations are there for digital stores like these?
I think, Jordan, that's over to you, given your
Yes,
experience with
certainly.
e-commerce.
So there's a few things to consider here. Now, I'm not familiar with Gumroad, if I'm being honest with you. So that's not something that I'm familiar with. In terms of short stories and intellectual property, now, are you just creating these stories yourself and other forms of IP? What are they? Are the sort of imagery? Just give us a better idea. Now, you will likely have an element of support called business and IP center, depending on where you are in the country. And they're good. They usually run out of a library and they're really good in terms of going and have a conversation about intellectual property. So well worth having a look at as well. But in terms of legal considerations, if you're holding consumer data, for instances, just making sure that if requirements required, ICO registration being for one. So do bear that in mind. Okay. Other things is your return policies. Now, with digital products, return policies are completely different to physical products. So understanding the consumer's right when you offer them. Now, if Gumroad is its own marketplace, it'll likely have its own terms and conditions. But because I'm not familiar with it, I'm unable to sort of, I suppose, give you an answer whereby you need to do it because I don't know how that works. If it's like Amazon, where, for instance, they have their own return procedures and policies, it's slightly different. If it's your own website, a bit like utilizing a third party website builder, then you will likely need to put your own in place. So bear that in mind. If you run an online business from home, mainly selling digital products and offering business education support, are there any council planning or business rate issues should I be aware of? And that's from Errol. Do you want to take that one, Mark, or would you like me to again?
I would say you've hit the nail on the head with councils. For those who are familiar with local authority operations, they tend to be deep in local bylaws, which probably stem back to the days of William the Conqueror and also. But I would say what you need to do essentially is to have that conversation with your local authority or business rates. It's a good segue to have a conversation with your local authority because they offer an element of business support as well. So if your support needs then sort of lend itself to looking at potential grants, if they are available, or any other sort of funding support areas, any sort of particular support with your business, it's a good idea to touch base with your local authority. If you would happen to come through to us and have a conversation with one of our business support advisors, that would very much be part of the conversation, very much part of the guidance, and we would obviously find you the exact contact details for your local authority where you live to have that extended conversation. But I'll certainly do that first. They are very approachable and they are very, very invested in helping local businesses in their areas.
Fantastic. And Errol, I can see you've got a couple of other questions there in regards to home working expenses. Um, my best advice is to make sure you track all expenses. Make sure you're keeping receipts and making sure you keep any invoices in regards to those expenses. But I think with relation to the questions you do have, I think they're really, really good questions because they help you understand the sort of the legal aspects of operating your business. So certainly worth getting the answers for them. And what I would highly recommend is give us a call or if you rather jump on web chat and have a conversation with one of the advisors as well. Sharon, a consultancy slash project management business. Would you have an online resources with example contracts or agreements, please? And that's from Sharon. You can take this one, Mark, or I can. It's completely up to you, mate.
Well, I think what exactly do you mean by online agreements? Is that sort of an agreement between you and a potential customer? Is like sort of a
I think what Sharon means is sort of
hmm,
templates or along those lines, which of course, um, I don't know about you, Mark, but I would be very hesitant just to use a
I would.
template.
I would as well. I definitely would. I think it's a good idea to get some advice and guidance from myself with regards to what could go in a potential template. Because I think it not only brands your business, makes you more visible, it becomes a little bit more professional, even though you're working from home. So I would certainly agree with you, Jordan, with regards to that.
Depending on how old your business is, Sharon, there's an organisation called Lawyers for Your Business, and it's through the Law Society. And if you're within the first 12 months of trading, or not trading yet, you might be able to sort of get some answers to those questions from them. You get a 1 hour free consultation with them. So well worth reaching out to them, Lawyers for Your Business. But give us a call as well. I know broken record here. Give us a call because our advisors can have a bit more chatting, a little bit more in depth on additional questions you may have as well. Let's have a look, see what else question wise. Some great ones. Bear with
I
me. Every
think
time someone adds in, it just
Emma's
disappears.
asked the question there on where's a good budget expense planner. Um, there's they can vary. There's loads of opportunities to get them. Very good as well. Very legitimate sources of links where you can download these expenses, these budget planners as well. One off the top of my head would be the King's Trust. They're
Yeah.
quite good. But as Jordan mentioned at the start of the webinar with regards that the ecosystem of business support, with regards to budget and expense planners and so forth, it might be a good idea to either obviously call ourselves and go into a bit more detail. You could actually extend the support you get looking at the business growth service, the business academy, or you have localized support as well for your local growth hub. Very similar to us, but very much a localized centric support element of business support. They can support you with that. There's a myriad of ways of doing it, but if you're comfortable with that, there are some legitimate downloadable resources we could signpost you to. Sorry, the voice is going. Don't make you do an impression of Yoda or anybody like that.
And Mark is right. The ecosystem of support is there from ourselves on the national level to the local level, and growth hubs are an element of that local support. Now, each growth hub is unique to themselves, unique to the local area, and have different criteria as well. So it's definitely worth exploring. And again, certainly Mark's right. We can explore in terms of local support for you and point you towards that as well. So do do certainly have a look at that wider ecosystem of support. Business Academy is fantastic. The BGS, the Business Growth Service website, business.gov.uk, also has some great information and I suppose signposting for you as well. So it's well worth having a look. Now, got time just for a couple of more. Louise, the Growth Hub is not the Business and IP Centre. It's slightly different. Business and IP Centres are dotted around, usually out of a library. So depending on where you are in the country, please don't put any personal postcodes or anything in that public thing. But we can see if there's a local Business and IP Centre for you. We can also help you understand the sort of the local Growth Hub offering and get an idea of that as well. So do feel free to reach out and we can help with that. Lee has just messaged here. I'm struggling to open a business bank account that will allow me to sell in the UK, US, and EU. I make jewelry and will be selling online. Suggestions. We can't suggest a business bank account. Just we're only able to do so. Um, what are the barriers? Is it the bank themselves saying that you can't sell in those markets? It's we're not able to signpost to particular private banks, for instances, and because that, I suppose, the world of banking and the way the accounts work, they always change. So it's not really something that we would be able to advise on or suggest. I'm not too sure in terms of the barrier you're doing. I'm assuming your business hasn't, it mustn't have a bank account yet, for instances. Maybe it's worth having a conversation with a few different banks and working out why those barriers are being put up in place. Um, it's certainly worth having that conversation. Let's have a look. Errol's got a few more questions. For an online business selling downloadable materials or access to business learning content, what legal basics should be checked early? So registration, depending on what, if you haven't registered yet, now you could, as a sole trader, you've got that £1,000 threshold where you providing your revenues below £1,000, you don't need to register to be a sole trader. But upon after that, you do. You can go limited company, for instances. So the first one is legal structure, and we can help you understand the key considerations, make informed decisions on which legal structure is worth doing. You might want to consider things if you're providing business advice, or you're providing, I suppose, your service element of advice, what insurances you may require as well. If you're holding consumer data and you're going to use that data in order to reach out to customers, and you're going to be storing that data as well, then the registration to the Information and Commissioner's Office, ICO, is also needed. So there's a few things, and we could go into a long in-depth conversation now, but I think more practically is certainly with the questions you've had, Errol, you've had some really good questions. Get in touch and our advice can have a chat with you. But can I just say thank you very much for being so proactive in the questions and in the discussion, getting involved in those polls, because it just makes delivery a bit more personal to yourselves as well. And head on over to likes of our YouTube, for instances, our LinkedIn's, our social media, to see the other content we're posting. As I say, newsletters were LinkedIn, YouTube. You can go and watch some of the previous webinars we've delivered. We have had one, for instance, on e-commerce as well as marketing. So go check them out. But thank you very much for joining. Really appreciate it. If you do call in, let the advisor know that you attended this webinar. It's great to see the journey. So do let us know when, if you call in, that you've been on the webinar. And if you want, certainly just there, let us know how good we've been. But thank you very much.
Yeah,
And
thank you. Have a great day. Lovely day.
all the best, everyone.
Thank you.